Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Just back from Minsk, so if you're wondering where I've been running around doing the Twister Cup commentary with my good mate Skate Extreme. We played a lot of games in Minsk of World of Tanks Blitz, which was great fun because they had this tank going on while we were away. This is where it dropped while we were away, the Skorpion G. Now, this is going to be, I guess it's kind of long, this video. There's a lot to talk about with this tank. It's very, very important that I qualify some of the comments I'm about to make because it's a crackerjack tank. It's a tank that I think is spectacular and really, really good. And it's also one of the tanks that I've found to be the absolute, without equivocation, hallmarks of this tank is if you are good, you can make this tank sing. If you are a reasonable tanker, you're going to struggle along with it. And if you are new to the game, for God's sakes, don't get the Skorpion G because you will just hate it. And the reason there's so many variations with this tank is it's a tank that relies on positional play. It is an excellent tank for early game sniping and then late game maneuvering around and using the mobility that it has to really get the job done. And the gun is amazing. Like, you have a .29 dispersion, 128mm gun. For those of you who are wondering what that kind of means, well, you do 460 alpha at a tier where 460 alpha is pretty important. It gives you nearly 3,000 damage per minute, which is a lot of damages per minute. And like, watch this shot. That's like 350 meters away. The shell velocity is nearly 1,000 meters per second. It is a great, great gun. You only have 6 degrees of gun depression, but on the Asia server, I've got this tank, and I was running it with 0 premo. Like, you'll see, this is me on Asia, and I got to tell you too, the Asia server, like, going from having 30 ping on the European server to having 180 ping on the Asia server was a real eye-opener to just how important it is to have some kind of good internet connection. I was running around like some kind of kid in a candy shop on the European server in this tank and in the VK100 because my ping was so low that every shot was kind of going in, and I got so few of those shots you just saw there where it was a borderline RNG thing. I was able to really just have very, very low latency returns, and it was great. Carrying away, or what? The other thing about this gun that's really important is because it's a 128, you actually get good pen on your HE. Well, not good, but 65mm of pen on your HE means all the usual suspects like Borsigs, the back of American tanks, waffle tractors, RU-251s, those kind of tanks, you're going to be able to pen them with HE very, very comfortably. And late game like this, you can see me moving around here and getting a lot of good looks using the mobility of the tank. Now, I had a good mate of mine, Serb, he said it's not that mobile. And I understand what he means because it doesn't take off like a medium tank. It doesn't take off like a light tank. It takes off like a fast heavy, which is reasonable. But you have a turret and you have this mobility, and it means that you can often end up in situations where you quite simply can do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise in a TD. And that turret and the mobility means you can be far more successful and far more effective. The downfall of this tank is that you are possessed of 14mm of frontal armor, which, I mean, I don't know why that guy fired AP at me, but it gave me a chance to get a second shot in, which is all I was really after, and, you know, we stat pad out that damage. Too late with the HE there, Buster. The tank, look, I love it. I think it's one of the best tanks I've ever driven, and I want to show you something. So all game I've been sitting up here sniping away. I got 2,500 damage. And the combination of speed and this turret means, one, you can set shots up in any conditions. One of the big issues you have with a non-turreted TD is that when you're trying to set shots up, you are absolutely at the mercy of return fire. You can't set yourself up for a shot in such a low risk situation like that very easily, but you can do it with the Skorpion because it has that turreted feel. And Number two, because you're so quick when you are flying along, it allows you to relocate very quickly. Now, it's not about CODing tanks. It's not about out-traversing tanks. It's about flatline speed, which lets you move the tank to different parts of the map very, very quickly. Let's face facts. You've got 14 millimeters of armor. If you start trying to use this thing as a COD machine, you deserve to get 100% deleted, because that's a stupid thing to do. Like, you only do that when you're absolutely in dire peril. But straight line speed, you can get this thing flying along, and that's very, very important, because 55 kilometers an hour and 20 in reverse is a lifesaver and a godsend for a tank like the Skorpion G. Now, it's the most popular tank ever. It's the most popular premium tank ever in World of Tanks Blitz, World of Tanks PC. And the reason for its popularity is because it's perfectly suited to the World of Tanks PC marketplace. It has that incredible mobility, it has good camo, and it has an insanely cool gun. But Blitz isn't like that. So what you've got to be aware of, and I said it before, is positional play. I mean, the positional... Oh, man, watch this gun. It's... rolling 528 in that poor grub, and then rolling around the battlefield, and I'm chasing my mediums. Now, I don't need traverse for this. Traverse is not important. What's important here is my flat line numbers. I've got to be able to stay abreast of my mediums and give them really, really good supporting fire, and I'm using cover. And another thing, 9.8 seconds is my reload. This gun, it is absolutely gorgeous, but the reason 9.8 seconds is important, because 9.8 seconds is the length of time it takes to reset camo. So from the time you fire the gun to the time the gun reloads is the length of time it will take you to reset your camo if you are far enough away from them, and if you're in hard cover or behind soft cover. If you're careful and you play positionally, you're going to make a lot of hay in this tank. If you don't give yourself hard cover between shots, you're going to get deleted, and you're going to deserve to be deleted. These shots you're seeing here are on like 20 ping, playing on the EU server, and the difference between playing there and playing on 180 is absolutely nonsense. I didn't realize how much love I was giving up playing from Asia like the rest of us convicts. But anyway, I digress. And you can see me working around the battlefield using my mediums as a screen and supporting them with incredible accurate fire from a wonderful, wonderful gun. And it's the synergy of that medium and TD combo that is clearing this flank. They just cannot stand up against this kind of firepower and this many vehicles. Then we see an RU, and obviously we're going to switch to HE, clear him. And I'm going to show you a game in a second on Himmelsdorf where I frontline the tank, because I really thought it was important to show you, because you're not always going to have situations like this. Number one, if you camp with this tank, you will do well. Like, if you just snipe with the tank, you will do well. And then when the time comes to move, if you move, then you will do very, very well. Now, this is Himmelsdorf. This is not a tank that would excel here normally, you would think. However, I would like to point out that the way I play this is exactly like the way I played that tank in the last game. Last game, I ran around behind the mediums, using their hit point pool, but being in very, very close support and helping them out a lot on that flank. They had a T-34 to deal with. They had lots of stuff to deal with. This time out, I'm going to try to run the heavy line, but I'm going to try and do it behind whoever's in front of me. Now, that Borsig is in a rough spot. I absolutely potatoed that shot. No way around that. The Borsig's in a tough spot. We've got people coming up on the right as well. The pen on this thing is 246 millimeters of AP pen. Now, that is a huge amount of pen. You rarely need to fire your APCR, but when you do, your APCR pen is 311 millimeters. So, yeah, you're not struggling for pen, and that 460 Alpha can roll as high as 575, which is a big ass roll. If you run into tier 7 tanks, God, you will tear them apart. You will absolutely tear them apart. There is not really much at tier 7 that you won't just insta-jib. Like, you will pen it and pen it and pen it every time. You can see what I mean with this turret. I'm able to set these shots up beautifully, and yet it's 20 kilometers an hour and is fast enough getting there that I can reverse up very, very quickly. And that means that it is tough for heavy tanks to get easy shots in. You've got to be very, very careful with the size of the turret. The turret is actually quite tall. The tank is a very tall tank. It doesn't look it when you have it on its own, but when you're up next, like look at that Borsig next to me. A big failing of a tank like the Borsig is that it is made of paper as well. It has a fully traversable turret, but it doesn't have the mobility that the Skorpion G has. And this mobility means that you're able to do some crazy things, like you're going to see me do here in just a second. Now, this is not for the faint of heart. That's a Panzer VK100-01P, obviously, and that is an awful lot of armor on that tank. What I'm going to do with this is try and create as many opportunities to out DPM him as possible and hit some shots. I'm going to do that by basically side hugging him, and side hugging is an excellent way of dealing with bigger, tougher to pen tanks. And that's at 246mm of pen going through the area just under the cheeks of the turret, I think. Look how tall this tank is. It ain't little. There's no way around it. This thing is a tall tank. That is a really big tank, that 100. And we're just keeping him right on board. Then we're going to reverse, make him miss, and go forward again. This is two of the craziest bounces you're ever going to see. I can't believe we bounced that. And then we're just going to turn around and HE the crap out of this poor old RU-251. This map ended up in a draw, but I think it really showcases the fact that this tank, if you just make it a peekaboo tank when you're in the close and the tight stuff, you'll be able to manage and you'll be able to give a whole lot of support. I'm going to finish up with a game on Canal, and this is a much more traditional Skorpion game, and I included this. I had about 15 freaking masteries in this tank. I didn't include them because a lot of them were with Skate, and he was playing like a VK100 O1P, and it was just an OP platoon where he would just plow the road ahead, and I would just shoot from behind, or we'd reverse it. That's critical hits, like you get RNG, I guess. You can see I'm running it with camo net. I think camo net is really, really important. You don't want to run it with optics. You do not want to be doing your own spotting at all, at least not in any kind of volume. You want to run this tank as it's a facet of the team. So many people have said to me that I have overrated this tank, and I talked about it a few times and how excited I was about it. But there are a lot of tanks at this tier, like that IS-3 for instance, that are just big-ass 120mm Russian kind of guns, and they will wreck you. There is no way around that. If they use HE, they can legitimately pen you. But your gun just won't miss. Your gun is so good at finding targets and finishing them off. And your DPM is fantastic. This is the traverse I was talking about. The traverse is not amazing. Your traverse is quite low. But it's not about the traverse. You're basically using your speed as a means of either getting away from tanks or keeping up with tanks. You're not using it to turn fight. You don't really need it to turn fight. You're not going to sidescope with this tank. You're not going to try and angle the tank up to bounce shots. You've got no armor anywhere. Like, you're going to get penned every time. It's pointless trying to do it. You are using this speed purely and simply to escape or deploy. There is no other way around it. And if you look at it from that perspective, then you've got 55 kilometers an hour. And that is a whole hell of a lot of nuts when you need to go fast. Don't take it to the front line unless you know what you're doing. If you take this tank to the front line, you are going to get whacked. Like, I've seen people in Skorpion Gs. Like, if you're spotted, you've got to move. If you're playing a Borsig, that's the exact same play style when you're sniping. You want to be moving your ass. But you're going to hit a lot more shots because the dispersion on the tank is legitimately incredible. And the penning power is... you need to pen with APCR when you're in Tier 9 games occasionally. But, I mean, 250mm of pen is basically what you got. And that's a whole lot. Look at this thing go up this hill. As soon as you give it a bit of a run-up, it's incredible. And you can then put yourself in situations to take shots like this into that 152. And And then I'm going to leverage him pushing down into catching him out of position. Just snapping one out. It's so easy with this tank. It's such a beautiful vehicle. I can see why it's so adored in the PC variant. Watch me just outturn this 152 after I donk a shot. He's not quick enough. I'm easily quick enough to get this done. And that's the ball game. That's the whole ball of wax. I'm going to take one from the 29, no problems. There's only 2 left, and we're just going to go and clean up. And here comes that, yep, sit down. We're just getting some cover here from that T29. It's a wonderful vehicle. It's a test of a tank, and I like it because it's challenging. If you are spotted, you are deleted. If you are spotted and you're in front of a big-ass HE firing TD, you are more than deleted. You're going back to the garage. It's a test. The drop rate, I'll talk about that quickly. 1% is too low. If you're willing to dump a couple of crates worth and go for it and get the Skorpion G, happy days. But 1% is far too low, in my opinion, like ridiculously low. And that's the numbers that I'd heard on it. I don't know that those 1% numbers are absolutely correct, because some people have been saying they got it a lot easier than 1%, but that's what I saw stated. So 1% is a whole other argument. I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into the crate tank argument. I'm not getting into value. That's up to you to decide. All I can tell you is that it's a really good tank for good players. It's an okay tank for your average player. And if you are a new player, do not get the Skorpion G. You will get completely destroyed. Until next time, look after yourselves, guys, and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.